Welcome to Albion TV presents the AO Daily Show, your source of real news in an unreal world, keeping you up to date on the latest news, events, and the great community of Albion Online. Today is Friday, the 20th of September, and I'm your host, Shozen. And with me today, as always, is my co-host, Bogul. How are you doing today, Bogul?
Good morning, sir. I'm doing quite good. I'm looking forward to this show because it's a very special one.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be pretty easy for us, isn't it, Bogul? I mean, we don't have to do much right now because we've already done all the work. You see, earlier today, we met up with Retroman, the game designer who is in charge of balancing the weapons of Albion, the weapons, the armor, the items, everything of Albion. And we had a pretty good conversation, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And we're going to basically just play that interview for you. But first, we have a couple of things to talk about. 1, 2, 3 things, right? There is a guild spotlight out there that you guys can check out for AW Gaming. You can check them out. It's up on the news site. I do not have a link for you right now.
I put it in Twitch.
Bogul does. Yeah, see how good this guy is? He's that good. Let's see. There is also a couple of contests that we're going to be working on, and I wanted to just mention those once again. We have the emoji contest, right? Where you guys make an emoji and then we will give you gold if we choose it. We're going to have an official thread for that, probably a Monday or Tuesday, but we want to give you a little bit of time to make it anyway. You guys over here in show get a heads up. And yeah, we will be, what is it? No, it's not gold. It's a whole month of premium, isn't it, Bogul?
Yes, sir. It is.
Yeah, it is. I forgot what the rewards were. They're pretty great.
Yeah, that's one of them. Keep your eyes peeled for an announcement in the forum thread and probably in other places too. You won't miss it, I think. And then maybe in the future we can have some nice Twitch emotes here on this very live channel. The other thing that we can plug at this point is that we will give away a few gold codes for good clips of the AO Daily Show and the AO Live shows. So if you see something interesting during one of our shows, remember to clip it and send it our way so we can show the best one probably once per week, and we will have some gold reward codes for these as well. But I think that is it for any official news PSAs, Shozen.
No, that's it. The next thing we're going to do is going to go and start playing this interview. But I want to let you guys know that you should tell your friends to come here and try to get in the raffle, because I will be pulling a bunch of raffles over the next 40 minutes or so. So, yeah, now's a good time to get in here for gold. And yes, it's going to be random. You won't know what you're getting until I give it to you at the end of the show, because I'm giving out all the ones that people missed throughout the week, as well as a bunch that I got for today, specifically.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
So it should be pretty good. So without further ado, let me go find this interview and start playing this most recent interview with Retroman. Welcome to Albion TV. Today, Bogul and I are here with Retroman, and we're going to be interviewing him on the latest mid-season balance patch. So before we do that, let's just say hello to everybody. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
All right, let's get right into this. So, Retroman, you've been here for a while now, since I believe beta, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I joined SBI roughly shortly before the last alpha phase started, and then basically was during the combat balance for beta 1. And then stick with that for up to now. And I also have now other tasks too. But yeah, that was always my main role in the company.
Yeah, I think Combat Balance Master is what most of us know you as. What's the official title for that? Because I don't think it's Combat Master.
My official title is just Game Designer, but Combat Designer is also, you could say.
All right, we'll use that. We'll call you the Combat Designer. All right,
okay.
So as the Combat Designer, what do you do there? How do you make this happen? Because it's not you just sitting in a room like drawing pictures, is it? I mean, you don't like make
Usually
picture
not,
designs of combat, like stick figures with swords and fireballs?
No, so usually I'm also implementing those spells with this. We have this XML system where you have like a small little scripting logic how the spells work, and then I build a prototype for a new spell, say, or like an adjustment, and then I talk to the coders and the artists to like code if we need new features. That's usually a bit difficult because we have such a big game which needs so much attention on so many fronts, and we are not a huge team, so I have to be really concise and thoughtful about which features we require for combat. And also to all the artists, like the effects artists and animations, and then implement this all and get it running. And then comes the exciting part of testing this first internally, but then really important externally with other players too.
Yeah, the testing is the part that, from what I understand, because we were talking about this a little while ago, there's not usually a lot of drama in testing spells, is there, Retroman?
Usually not, no. No, usually not. Apparently, there seems to be some drama right now.
Oh.
Yeah, let me first maybe introduce a bit how we approach it. So we try to be as open as possible with this process. We have these NDA balance playtests, and we have this forum post where I frequently update all the balance changes that we are currently testing. And for every test that we do with external players, it's always updated so everyone can see what we are testing right now. There's no guarantee that these changes will go live like that. Sometimes I roll back some big changes and then go back to a prior version or do something else if it doesn't work out like intended. But everyone gets kind of the same chance of seeing what direction it's roughly going. It's like trying to be as fair as possible with this. So the drama now is that they, as far as I understand, is like they think it's a very biased group, that we only listen to a few guilds or a certain alliance or something. And the process how this works is we're trying to contact all the most important guilds right now in the game, so who are very strong and very competitive in PvP. And we try to spread a bit, like have the best GVG players, try to contact them, and try to play some of the most important ZVZ guilds. And then we invite them to these tests. We require all players to sign an NDA with their real name and all the information. And
you expect players to give you their real names?
Yes, we do. We do. That's also limiting us a bit. Some guilds don't like to do that.
So you're saying I can't just write Hot Pants 92 on there and get into the NDA?
No, unfortunately not, no. Maybe 93, but 92 is too low.
Okay. Well, need hotter pants.
You need hotter pants. That's not hot enough.
So what else do they need to do to get into this besides sign the NDA with their real name?
So then they need to be available to at least bring 5 players reliably to playtests, because usually we test, most playtests involve groups versus 5 versus 5. We sometimes do solo tests and we want to improve on that too. But so far the main formats we are testing are usually relying on group fights in some way or another. And the more ZVZ-oriented groups, we want them to have at least 20 players to be able to fight. And also, usually we need you to be available at times that are good for you, so devs can join, so we don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. and then come into work the next day. So it's usually something like 18 to 19 UTC is when we start playtests usually.
Yeah, no late night testing for the California guys, huh?
Yeah, we try to avoid. We sometimes do it because sometimes it's hard because we want to diversify the opinions as much as possible, but it's very hard on our
I can imagine. End. Yeah, I try to get Lupac to do the occasional evening NA invasion, and that poor man is up till 2 o'clock at night. He can't handle that with 2 kids anymore.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
Well, I'm saying it's understandable for you guys too. You guys, you have full-time jobs. You come in on the weekends to do these tests generally. And these are extra in addition to what you're already doing. And then you come in on the weekends. And I can imagine wanting to get home before midnight is probably pretty high on your list on a Saturday night.
Usually it is, yes. Usually it is, yeah. So I don't. Yeah, before midnight it usually works.
So,
out, but yeah.
what you're looking for is 5 for GVGs, 20 for ZVZs, players who can give you their real names, sign an NDA, which means they won't leak the information that they have seen, and then what? Maybe, I don't know, just be civil and generally
Exactly,
not
yeah.
schmoes.
And here's the thing that's a bit tricky to enforce, and but we try our best. Is like we want you to not be too openly political. Like I guess they're all human beings, and there might be some things that they try to influence in a certain direction, but especially keep out those fights like, oh, Guild A is bad because of this, and we hate Guild B because during this playtest, we also have guilds that are enemies in the real game in the same test. And I think that is really helpful for us, because we can get both opinions. But it's really important for us that they try to be civilized as much as possible.
So, but can we confirm here that you're not actually making changes to specifically impact one group or another? You're not making changes to healing just to be mean to Error 404?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. No, my actually own interest is only to make the game as engaging as possible, to have players returning and stay engaged with the game. I'm usually not even always up to date with all the political situations in the game. So we had, for instance, like in the past, we hired various guilds for those playtests that were enemies, and said like, oh yeah, we have a good diversified group, and then someone complained later and said, yeah, you're biased towards one specific alliance, and that turned out, oh, in the meantime they formed they grouped one alliance. They're not enemies anymore.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit. I mean,
that happens, and I'm not always up to date with everything, so we try to update the players all the time.
Right now with let's see, I think we have 22,000 in 3 different alliances. If you combine those 3 alliances, it's 23,000 players. It could be very easy to end up getting, 60 players from one alliance accidentally when everybody has go ahead and joined these 3 mega alliances. So yeah, things change quickly in the political side. I don't think there's any intention to pick from one group.
But usually when we realize that, we always try to diversify it, because if there's really players only from one alliance, then it's a high chance that they're really arguing in their favor. I mean, they're all human beings. Even if they are not intentionally doing it, you always kind of try to argue for something that helps you. We need to, that's always a price we have to pay with these tests, but the value we get out of having actual experienced players test these changes and communicate with us about these changes is really high for us, and it's definitely worth some of these other shortcomings when we risk players trying to influence in a certain direction.
Are you saying that there were players who were trying to influence you to keep the old grudge meta just because they had a lot of fun killing players in the open world with it?
No, we didn't have anyone defending grudge meta, for instance.
Okay, so players can be reasonable. So you're saying in the most extreme cases, players can be reasonable. Okay, I like this. All right, I have more faith in humanity now. Thank you, Retroman.
Yeah, and if they're too obvious, then they're usually not invited again for playtests.
So you're saying you don't invite Gluttony over for 5v5 testing?
No, unfortunately not.
All right, well, that's good. That's good. Is there anything else this drama, do you want to say what sparked this drama, or do you want to just say that
I mean, I can quickly say something about this. So this was about the damnation staff. And in the last patch, I reduced the damage, basically because I'm not happy with these bomb squads being so strong. In general,
yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, in general, huge alpha damage, big alpha damage. It's not super huge, but you can make it huge with buffing and bringing multiple. And this big radius is a combination that's not very good for the game. And in general, high alpha damage and one-shots is always a bit tricky in Albion, because it's a full loot game. To some degree, it's good that you can burst down enemies, because it allows a smaller Zerg to fight a bigger group of players. That is something good, but we don't want the game to be too strongly focused about it, especially with like large areas. Like if the more difficult it is, the better.
It has such a large area effect that with the area effect scaling, the ZVZ scaling, when you hit 15 people with it, that's going to do massive damage.
Yeah,
so
it does. It does.
Yeah.
And the first approach with this patch was to just reduce the base damage and keep the whole playstyle alive. I think it didn't work out as I would have liked to with the first videos appearing. And that's why I think it needs more adjustments. And that was part of a discussion of what I would like to try. And usually when most of the times I actually don't post when I intend to make a change. It's usually more like a sanity check, or I want to start a discussion with the players that are currently there, because I was also not entirely sure if I really want to do this step.
Yeah, just to get like some feedback on it. Go, this is what I'm looking at doing. What do you guys think? Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And there's also like what is misleading about this whole league is there's a huge group of players involved in this discussion from all kinds of guilds. It's not like just
so it's not just one group that's saying, hey, can you do this for me? You saying, hey, yeah, that sounds great, buddy. I'll do that for you. What do you want done?
No.
And
no,
so this is a discussion with like, a dozen plus guilds, all talking about something that needs to be changed. And the changes that are in now are more like hey, I'm looking at going in this direction. It's not necessarily where it's going to be when the patch hits, but I'm looking at trying something different to change what's going on.
And this change is now in testing only. It might be very different when it hits the live server, so it's not a done deal.
Okay.
But definitely, so what you can kind of derive from that change is that the way it currently works with Damnation is I'm not happy with that, and we will have to do something about it. Might be the solution with the dot. There's already also in this group, there were some people who didn't like this change so much, and we will test it, and it might end up being a different change if it's too drastic, because I can understand players that it's affecting their playstyle quite a lot. We will see how it turns out.
Yeah, I admit I saw that change this morning, and my eyes boggled. Because I was I understand. It's just such a drastic change to the play style. Like I am in the base that goes, this needs to be changed. It's not working correctly, right? It's clearly not. Anybody who's played in ZVZs right now sees the bomb squad, is affected by a bomb squad, goes, can we please do something about that? But now, the change I saw made me go, But
I see.
That's just that's because I'm a player. Your back gets put up. You have to remember, this is just an initial suggestion of a direction to go in a change, and not a final change.
It's not final.
Yeah, if you're one of these guys who doesn't like it, go, hey, how about we do like a slighter change, or maybe change this, like change the size of it or something. So yeah, I understand going in another direction, and of course there are going to be players who play these weapons who immediately are shocked, but it's just step one on, for example, so we can give people a reference. You recently did changes to the CC on armors. Yeah. And if you look at the most recent patch notes, you can see that for 2 plate armors, it says that they were at 1 variable, and then they changed to that exact same number. And that's because in testing, they did change. And through the process of testing, they ended up right back where they were, which seemed to be the right balance, correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So the first thing that gets posted isn't always where they're going to be a month and a half later. Yeah,
and usually I find that the more drastic the first version is of my change, the better idea I get of that's really the direction I want to go in. So usually when I often test, I sometimes overdo it a bit to see to really have an impact when we play it, right? If you do like a few percentage change, then it's hard to notice.
Right.
But if you do a more drastic change, you can really see the difference. And then you can say, okay, actually that's nice, but the change was too drastic. Or you say like, actually that's not really the direction we want to go in. But it helps definitely to do it a bit more drastic than to be too subtle in testing, not on live.
Especially when you're changing the mechanic of the spell as well, because right now you're changing the mechanic of it from being that that immediate splash damage, that burst damage style, to a damage over time. Of course, it's going to be a drastic change because you want to see how that affects it as a mechanical change. And if it was too slight, you wouldn't know what part of it was changing it so now you start really low, and then you can build it up over time to bring it in line with what you want for that style of ability, to make it a full E ability instead of right now, because it feels a little light. Like when I look at that, I go, ooh, that's going to be light. That's going to be a light thing. But
I get you. And we're still in testing, and it might end up differently. But I definitely hear you.
Yeah.
And you're not alone. There's
Yeah.
some players who are not happy with it. Also in this NDA Discord, there were players who were in favor of it, but there were also players who didn't like that.
Well, I will say that I'm absolutely in favor of the change in general. I think that it's something needs to happen to this particular spell, which we see this happen in every meta. Whenever there's a new meta that evolves, you see something that steps out and you go, ooh, that needs to be changed. And I'm so happy that something is happening to it. So don't get me wrong when I say, oh, I don't like this. I just look at the percentage, and I'm glad that it's being worked on and something's going to happen to it. And I'm looking forward to where it is when it works its way out. So, yes, my initial, fear, pain, my chest is breaking. What is going on? What is this weight in my chest? It's going to be relieved, I'm sure, by the time that this, goes on. So, yeah, I understand that these things do take time. But now that we've gone over this, do we want to talk more about the specific changes that we have in the patch 5 balance changes?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So in this change, what was your favorite thing to change? What did you see as the thing that needed to be changed the most, and you were like happiest with its result at the end?
Oh, my favorite. That's a difficult question. So maybe a bit on a meta level. What was the main things I think needed to work on? So first off, we had this super strong dive meta.
Mm-hmm.
And also I wanted to use this patch a bit we had last patches were very much focused on a lot of buffs and bringing up a lot of underused items and weapons and spells. And I wanted to use this a bit also to ground the gameplay a bit, because we kind of risk shifting the baseline to more stronger and more OP spells. So I felt this time we needed maybe to reduce the effects of some things, like say an obvious choice would be the, what's it called? Battle Frenzy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right, you have this super high immunity with super high move speed, and that's, for instance, an obvious thing that needed to be toned down. Mm-hmm. And in general, this was a bit of a theme. Sacrifice from Graveguard Helmet is another case. I think I so far it's usually hard to tell when the patch is out so early, because it sounds good and it feels good like for the first time. Then players do something that was not intended, and then we might have to change it. But so far, I think, for instance, the Graveguard Helmet solution is quite good.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty good too. I think that it's nice to just removing its ability to heal its own user. I think was a good idea. I think it was too much of a crutch for a lot of players, to be honest.
Yeah, and especially in solo play, and especially with the upcoming updates, we need to focus more on open world fights. And solo fights too. And I think especially for solos, this Cleric Graveguard combo was not really healthy, so it's really important to address it.
Okay. Speaking of open world, is that what you were looking at? Because I noticed there's big changes to nature here with the changes to thorns. Now, I'm not a nature player, but I know this is going to affect them. What is the builds you're looking at with this? Because I've heard, well, we're not going to be able to heal ourselves now.
That's also quite a drastic change with nature. But I felt like they were always in this weird position with I think they're working really well in group situations, nature staffs. But in solo situations, they had this very sustaining gameplay, which I understand can be satisfying for the people doing that, and it's also you need to pay attention to your positioning and don't. But it also enables like playstyles where you like this chest rating, for instance, in 2v2 Hellgates, and situations like this is not really the greatest situation for all players involved, I think. And also even for PvE clearing, I would rather try to focus to get nature staffs in a better position to have better clear speed. Like if they go DPS, then they have better DPS values instead of this damage over time, heal over time, out-sustaining your enemy playstyle.
Okay, so it's to reduce its twofold. One, to give them more upfront damage, and then
Yeah.
also to reduce their longevity in these super long out sustain fights
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
like, if you watched two nature healers go at it, you're looking at something where if it was a 1v1 GVG, that thing would end at 25 minutes every time. The defender would just have that because they
Yeah.
go long, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and usually we don't want to focus sustain fights too much because I don't think they're very exciting for many players. I mean, there's players who enjoy that type of fight, and that's all good. But if it's too extreme, it can be very frustrating to fight against these. And also, like, yeah, that applies actually across all kinds of fights, like even for GVGs. If it is too the meta is too sustain heavy, that's also something I would consider.
Like the
not in
Metamoose
a
or the
healthy
reset.
position.
Like when we had Metamoose reset and then we had the Holy reset, both those just lasted forever. There was no stopping of the battle. It would just keep going and going and going.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you're looking for, from what this conversation we've just had, it sounds like you're looking for a time that's somewhere in between just getting blown up before you have anything to do, and something shorter than, say, 5-minute battles. You'd like to see somebody maybe fighting for a minute or so, 45 seconds, giving you 3 or 4 attempts at making a counter play, maybe 1 reset on your spells, but you don't want to see somebody sitting there until somebody gets tired.
Exactly. That's also the self-healing thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically to like give them a countdown until they say, okay, now that's over. So let's don't drag that on forever, right? Usually, we had in the past energy was usually supposed to be, but we have so many options right now to circumvent it, which is all nice for your build variety, which I didn't want to cut down. But I think it's necessary to have one way to really reduce fights that they cannot last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And for nature staffs, so the ideal outcome would be that you can, if you go solo, you can either go in a more DPS direction with the Thorn skew, or if you want to play healer, you have to commit to a healer role, but you can't have both.
Okay, all right.
And the patch is very new, and if we will check, especially this is also one thing where I'm really watching carefully if we need to buff it maybe or how it performs. And if we see, Thorns is really not working out so great for them, then we might improve the values there, right? So if, like, after a patch is before the next patch, so we always have to pay attention how it's working out. And if, so they just have players, like, for instance, if they find this is now too weak and we have a look at it again, then it might get buffed. But maybe it's already in a perfect spot, so just putting it out there that is an option, that a lot of these changes might get iterated if we find that they're not performing the way we wanted them to.
Okay. So, but you do see this Thorns as a way for somebody to do DPS as a nature now. Where do you think, like, their DPS level would go in? Where would you put them at?
I don't really rank them like this.
Okay.
So, but they should be pretty good. I mean, we have adjusted them quite a lot in the playtest. They were really high in between. Then we had to tone them down because the clear speed was kind of ridiculous because they were almost the best DPS class. I would have to check what level they are right now. But they should definitely be much better than before. Okay. Much faster.
All right. Well, that's excellent.
And we have also added for the Circle of Life that you can combo it with your new Q, that you get some additional value out of it.
Yeah, I was looking at that and I was like, this looks like you have some interesting combos available to you to make a different type of play style. And Bogul and I were actually talking about trying to get in there and actually playing some of it just to see what it would be like, because it does seem very, very different. And when something is very different, it almost feels like it's a new class. It seems so, like, it's a minimal change of just moving one spell over, but it has such an effect that it feels like it's a completely different class.
In general, also for Holy Staffs too, we also would like to look at their whole PvE gameplay in solo again and give them a bit more options or make it more interesting to play. But that's something for the future that we are looking into, like maybe have W's trigger certain effects only against mobs, or things like you can use some of your Ws on allies or enemies, and they might have a negative effect
like,
on enemies too, or something like that.
Like two different, uses out of the spell. Interesting. Speaking of Holy, there were a bunch of changes to Holy. You made the range longer. You changed one of the Qs, and you changed the Holy explosions. What is the impetus for this? Are you trying to? Is this to give them more of a place in GVG so that they can maybe combat this dive meta, or is that just I'm not seeing it correctly?
No, it's definitely to help them in the GVG meta mainly, and also in general. Like, so the Holy is really susceptible to interruptions, right? Like any quarterstaff, and so that's why I think in general a higher range is something that Holy helps. So he can play safer more behind his group. So that's something I think makes perfect sense also in the open world. And the Sacred Pulse spell rework is also to give Holy more options to deal with. First to give him more utility, right? Because you have a knockback, but also a way to deal with repositioning and maybe knock back enemies in your, and like say you get dived by an enemy and you can knock him out or knock him away.
Yeah, and it even can get yourself, like as a self heal,
you
can get yourself out of
you.
it. Yeah, or you can cast it on even a fully healed nearby friend to get the guys away from them farther into the background.
Exactly.
I see a lot of different ways to use that, and it looks like it could be very interesting. I do want to see it played. I do want to see how it works.
We had different versions of it. First, there was an iteration, I don't know if it was abandoned playtest, where it was knocking back consistently, like not only once, but that seemed like it would be very strong to apply just on your tank who's quarterstaff, and then he does like Ironclad does his E, and then Holy gives him this W, and then it was a bit too much.
Yeah, you could totally dominate another healer with that completely. You could knock them all over the world.
It looked fun, but it would be too annoying.
Well, we've already talked about it. It's going to be great for Albion soccer. I'm just saying. It's like this.
Absolutely.
So,
true, yeah.
Speaking of getting knocked back, one of the things you've done, and this is to me huge, and it's a little bit under the radar, but the changes to CC on the cloth and leather armors. This seems like a huge one. Can you tell us about this and the ideas for this and what you're trying to get out of this change?
Yes. So first off, in general, I think Albion is quite CC heavy, so CCs can last very long. And a lot of the cloth and leather players are, especially like cloth, are a bit punished twice in a way that they have really low armor values, but also really low CC resistance. So once they get CC'd, they have a very high chance of dying.
Yeah.
And in general, we would like them to have better survival chances, especially in smaller open world skirmishes too. That not the first time you get CC'd by anyone is necessarily always a certain death. It depends, of course, on the setup and how many players and everything, but in general, it's good that you have a better survival chances. That's also why we reduce the knock-up durations.
Yeah,
various abilities.
They seem to get reduced across the board, and combining that with the CC changes, I imagine we're going to see a lot less initial engages with soul scythes knocking up half the team and then them getting blown up before they even hit the ground. So that'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, it should still be viable, right? It's just it should be more difficult to get these setups.
Yeah, more as an engage to slow the retreat or something, or to just get the tanks out of the way so that you can run past to engage, rather than what I felt was just too easy of a setup to engage in a double CC effect and then just blow people up, especially with the way that Damnation was working. Because by the time that people were landing, the Damnation was already exploding. Like, you could run in there. I mean, you changed it, like, with the Graveguard boots going down to 40 and, the Damnation not blowing people up. That would be, those three things combined, you would definitely see a complete change to the initial engages on ZVZ. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all works out for sure. Is there any other changes you'd like to talk about really quick? Because we've come across a pretty long...
We're running out of time?
Yeah, I mean, not out yet. We still have about 5 minutes we can chat, but...
Let me quickly look. Is there anything... Yeah, we had the crossbow spell in between. that's what we were testing. I don't know if you, for players who followed the NDA patch notes. And in case you were wondering why it's left out, it was actually mainly due to time constraints because we couldn't. We have such a busy big update you're working on, as you may know from the dev talk.
There's an update coming?
Yeah, I don't know. It's there seems to be a dev talk around where Robin talks about all the new things that we are working on right now.
Excellent. I'll have to look into that, see if I can find that somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, there might be something.
So what was the changes to that crossbow that didn't quite make it in yet, but will be in?
It was like the bowler shot ability where you could hit, if you hit the enemy, it would reduce the cooldown of its own ability. We also would have to see how to really support it mechanically. We would need to tweak the code a bit, which is also something we didn't have the time for because the department was so busy.
Yeah, I remember.
Crossbows would be the next weapon line that would eventually get probably a new spell and an update. So it's a...
Ooh, okay. All right. Nice to hear. I mean, yeah, we saw that bola shot and we were just confused because we were reading what it did and we were like, well, is it going to slow people down or stun them or have some sort of secondary effect? Because it didn't seem like its damage was in line with what it was doing. And I can understand now the way that you do the spells is you make sure that they don't start too overpowered because that just makes it real hard. You scale them up till they're useful. And that seems like, yeah, I could see how that would work with Bola, but it did seem to need something else. Like there was just something about it that wasn't quite clicking when we read that. Like it just, I didn't see it adding up. Like I just didn't go, okay, why would I use this?
I see. Yeah, it was still an early stage. We would have probably tried a bit more out if we would have sticked with a spell. And when we do another spell, it might be something different. It was still very early. We didn't have any assets or anything created. It was just prototype with placeholder graphics. So totally possible to have that when we do a crossbow spell, that will be completely different.
Well, I gotta say the concept behind it of every time it landing and reducing the cooldown. I think that would be very cool as a mechanic, but I would love to see like another mechanic added to it. Like, because it is a bola shot, I would love to see a slow, just to go in line with the naming,
Oh, I see.
Unless you want to do it in typical Albion naming fashion, and then it could be a bola shot, and then it could make you faster.
Yeah, fair.
All right. There was one.
I think it was a root. I can't remember.
Oh, there was a root on it. Okay.
I don't think that was a root. Yeah.
I don't think it made it into the notes because I remember Bogul and I were.
Oh, it didn't have it in the notes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'll tell you, the root on it makes a lot more sense. No, that makes it actually useful. I would use it.
And dealing damage.
Okay. No, that sounds like really cool because we had talked about that a few times. We're like, well, does it do anything else? But okay, that makes a lot more sense. One of the other things is I heard that, because we don't have much time left here, I heard that you recently brought in a junior combat designer. Is this true?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, can you tell us about this new individual? We know nothing about them.
Yeah, I guess he will probably talk, probably introduce himself on the forums at some point. I don't know. I haven't followed. But yeah, he's been working on spells. For instance, a bowler shot was from him.
Okay, cool.
That he was working on, and he's also working a lot on PvE and on new mobs and everything. And some of the mid-season patch, the new fire ability, also fire stuff ability, was created by him.
Oh, the
new W.
The turret. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we actually got to see that used in a GVG the other day. I never expected to see it in a GVG because somebody's standing still, but it was pretty cool. We got to see somebody using it fairly effectively. We did say it seemed like a very troll comp from the other team, but it was, because they were using a turret and stuff, and they were really trying to slam people down. But we did see that there would be some really cool combinations for people to set it up and be able to really blow somebody up with that, really make it so that they can't run away. And if you make a range group, using bows and turrets, it could be pretty cool. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nice risk versus reward thing, right? You have to be very stationary, but also you can dish out a lot of damage. So that's and it works in the whole way. The fire staff is kind of designed more like a turret style. the weapon kit. So I think, yeah, also it's a really good addition so far.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, Retroman, for showing up and talking to us about this patch. I really enjoyed it. We need to do this again because I feel like we just got a lot of insight on the patch, and that players will really appreciate this.
Sure, yeah, we can do that again, maybe when the next balance patch rolls out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Do you want to give any shout-outs before we let you go?
Shout out to all the players and all the content creators, especially because I try to watch a lot of our content creator YouTube videos and streamers to also get a bit of an insight how their experience is with the game and especially with the combat. And it's really much appreciated. That really helps to give you the motivation, especially when you have really long hours. All right, then thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Bogul, do you want to say anything before we go?
No, sir. I just enjoyed listening to you guys. I had a few things, but you already picked them up. So it's just left to say thank you very much for your time, sir.
Yeah. Again, I will reiterate that. Thank you very much. Thank you. you. Like, we really appreciate this. This is a really good thing. I'm sure the players will absolutely love this. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Bye. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Retroman. I believe that is it for us today, so we are just going to head out. There isn't going to be much of an overtime today. Sorry about that, guys. But we did make up for it by giving away lots of raffles. So enjoy that gold, and we'll probably pull 2 more before I head out of here. Bogul, is there anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, just share this interview with your friends. Send everybody that link to the VOD. I will try to get it up in a few minutes, probably on Reddit too. And yeah, hope you have a good weekend and enjoy your Albions. See you around.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, guys. You can check us out Monday through Friday right here at twitch.tv/Albion Online and on soundcloud.com/AlbionTV and YouTube as well at Albion TV. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay classy, Albion.